E-cigarettes are a billion-dollar industry. Sales continue to increase as manufacturers market them as a safer alternative to smoking. But now the FDA is getting involved in placing restrictions on their sale. And while some are applauding the FDA for doing something, many say it's not nearly enough, especially in places like Indiana, where cigarette companies spend millions testing new products. Gretchen Frazee reports.
Jamie Rake smoked for 25 years, and up until a year ago, she was smoking as many as 2 packs a day. She says it's not just the nicotine that kept her habit going. She liked the feeling of having a cigarette in her hand and the routine of inhaling the tobacco and blowing out the smoke. So she wasn't really interested in quitting until last year, when she learned about a new device.
The vapor made me quit because I went straight from smoking to vaping, and I never smoked a cigarette after I got my e-cigarette.
Vaping, as Rakes calls it, means smoking electronic cigarettes. Here's how it works. An e-cigarette is a battery-powered device that contains nicotine mixed with propylene glycol, a liquid that's found in a variety of products from shampoo to asthma inhalers. As you inhale, the device converts the liquid to vapor, which you can then breathe out. A key difference between these products and traditional cigarettes is that e-cigs don't have tobacco in them, and that's why e-cig advocates like Rakes say they're a safer and healthier alternative.
I've felt nothing but better since I started vaping. I can breathe better, I don't get winded. I could probably go out and run around the building and be fine at this point, where before, if I went out and tried it, I'd make it about a quarter of a ways down and be out of breath.
But many health experts say it's too early to tell if e-cigs are really better for you.
Studies that we've seen so far is that the electronic cigarette is not an evidence-based way to help people quit smoking, at least quit smoking long term.
Cigarette companies, meanwhile, are investing in e-cigarettes. The reasons make a lot of sense. E-cig sales brought in an estimated $1 billion last year, and in many states, including Indiana, they're not regulated. Compare that to traditional cigarettes. States have been increasing taxes on them and implementing outright smoking bans. States aren't sure what to do with e-cigs yet, though. Many are including e-cigarettes in their indoor smoking bans. Others have moved to define e-cigarettes as tobacco products, so all the same laws that apply to cigarettes also apply to e-cigs. Indiana already bans the sale of e-cigs to minors, but Indiana Department of Health officials say they're waiting for the FDA to finalize its rules before taking any further steps to regulate the products or the companies that sell them. Indiana is at the heart of the new market. The state has long been a test market for tobacco companies, and last year Newmark, a sister company to cigarette manufacturer Philip Morris, also tested its new e-cigarette Mark 10 in Indiana.
They always seem to pick Indiana to test market their products. They test marketed some of the new smokeless chewing tobacco products, the snus and the orbs and the sticks and products like that. They test marketed those in Indiana as well a few years ago. I think they pick Indiana because of our high rates of tobacco use in the state, relatively lax tobacco control policies.
Anti-smoking advocates say allowing Indiana to be a test market sends the message that the state supports smoking and it isn't serious about getting people to quit.
We need more research dollars for sure to address, emerging issues. The tobacco industry outspends us by a lot in Indiana and nationwide. And, in terms of being able to do research to even figure out what their marketing strategies and their impact of their marketing is difficult when you just don't have the resources in the state to do the research.
Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids estimates Indiana collects more than $500 million each year from tobacco taxes. A small fraction of that, only about 1%, goes toward tobacco cessation programs and research. That puts Indiana in about the middle of the pack when compared to how much other states spend on anti-smoking programs, but it's less than 10% of what the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say Indiana should be spending. And while Indiana's smoking rate is declining along with the national average, it still ranks in the top 10 states nationally, with more than 1 in 5 adults smoking.
Courtney Stewart with the Indiana Prevention Resource Center joins us now. The end of that piece, we just heard that more than 1 in 5 adults smoke in cigarettes in Indiana. How does that correlate with the e-cigarette?
You mean as far as why they're test marketing things here.
Yeah.
It could be because Indiana has a fairly high rate of smokers, and they might be trying to get, some of the marketing is aimed at youth, so they might be trying to get youth involved, or people who believe that e-cigarettes are useful when they're trying to quit smoking tobacco. So
is it safe to say that if Indiana has this high rate of smoking, could we assume that people are also going to start taking to e-cigarettes fairly quickly?
we might. There's a lot of research. I know that Dr. Macy just addressed that when he mentioned that more research dollars need to be funneled towards e-cigarettes, and if they're a good cessation tool or not. It's not really known at the current time. So
now, there was also talk about in the story youth, and you mentioned that too. What's the real concern about youth and e-cigarettes?
The marketing. It seems, it would appear that they're marketing to youth. We saw this several years ago with the Joe Camel cigarettes and that whole marketing campaign. A lot of the flavors that they're putting out really appeal to youth: strawberry, banana, coconut. Some of the packaging and the sleeves that are available for the electronic cigarettes, one of them is Angry Birds. So I mean, it's a youth market, or so it looks to be.
What can states do to try and prohibit minors from using the e-cigarettes?
Well, the states can pass laws, from selling. Indiana has done so. E-cigarettes, I believe, are banned on the IU campus. So some policies like that. Trying to get some more research and education about about electronic cigarettes and the harm, as well as the benefits if people are trying to quit. So,
but to be somewhat real about this too, I mean, if people are going to smoke,
yes,
wouldn't you prefer to see them smoking the e-cigarettes rather than a regular cigarette?
I think that's a good question. I can't answer it because we don't have enough research behind e-cigarettes to really say whether or not they are dangerous to the person inhaling them, or if the secondhand vapors are a problem. It's not yet known.
So there are also two different types. There's a difference in flavor, alcohol versus flavor e-cigarette liquid. Is that true? Is there really a difference between those two?
Well, it depends on the product and if it's, who's testing it. I mean, some of the products have nicotine, and they also have just chemicals that people are inhaling, and that it's called vaping. And then some of the other products just have flavoring and water, essentially, and there is no nicotine. So it depends on where you buy the product, if it's tested, what chemicals are in there, who knows.
Very interesting. Thank you for shedding some more light on the situation.
Thank you.
And you can visit Indiana State Parks for free this weekend as the state kicks off the season where more people start heading outdoors. It's offering free admission for all visitors on Sunday. Now, admission is also free to veterans only on Saturday. The State Department of Natural Resources is hoping the incentives will bring more people outside to enjoy the trails, plants, and wildlife. And don't forget the caves as well. They've been closed for a while.
Right, they were closed for a while because of the Indiana bat and the white nose syndrome, but now they're open, so now's your chance to go.
Exactly,
Right.
And we have more information about all of that
Yes.
on our website, WTIUnews.org.
Yes.
All right,
Right there.
Thanks, Alex.